Hello and welcome to a special edition of Community Insight, the news that brings you above and beyond the scope. I'm Andre Evans, and in this edition, we're going to be talking about the future of public access television. I know some of you have been wondering, what's going on with public access television? How can I express my opinions and my views? We no longer have a platform. And our special guest today, our very own Executive Director of BIG, Miss Kathy Bisbee, is going to hopefully shed some light on the future of public access television. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me on. It's so good to see you again.
Yeah.
It's been a year and a half.
Something like that, yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I remember the last time you was on the show, we talked about the future of public access television.
Yeah.
And there was some discrepancies and I know there's a lot of protests, and that the FCC had passed a bill to actually discontinue funding for local cable television. I don't know the correct term because it changes so often, but we still call it public access. So basically what I'm going to ask is, I'm sure other people have the same question, what's on the table right now as far as where it stands?
There's a lot to talk about. There really is. Well, first of all, it's so great to see you after a year and a half.
Yes.
And this is my
here.
first member show that I've been on. So thank you so much for having me on the show.
No problem. Anytime.
A lot's happened in community media, public access, whatever you want to call it, it's fine by me, over the last 18 months. And so I'll tell you a little bit about that first, because I think that's sort of overshadowing everything else, or maybe it's uplifting everything else.
Okay.
And then we'll get to the FCC order and talk a little bit about what's happening there, which is still in process, but there's definitely been some progress. So we're happy about that. And then there's also work that's been done at the community level in Brookline this year.
Oh.
So there's a warrant article that I'd love to talk about that we were able to pass in the town. So first of all, I mean, the last 18 months have been so crazy. You know, we had to shut down our facilities. Yeah. We're in a school building, so that was tricky to be able to, you know, protect students who weren't able to get vaccinated early on. We were trying to protect our staff, our members, the public. So we really did have to shut down. We, in a span of really 48 hours, maybe 72 hours, we took all of our major systems online, remote, completely remote. So we were able to, over the last year and a half, be 100% remote. It really also shifted where our resources of BIG went. So instead of, you know, supporting members like you, which we love to do and really missed, we were able to support local government in the middle of, you know, the first ever global pandemic. I mean, we've never seen anything like this.
No,
I mean, it's been said over and over again, right? We've never seen anything like this, but it's really true. So we shifted gears and really focused on government access and making sure that local decisions that we're taking, in some cases all night to make decisions, that they really got the resources needed to make sure that the community could have a dialogue with itself. And that's really, I think, at our best as public access, that's what we do, is make sure that the community has a conversation with itself, that we help facilitate dialogue, that we help represent voices that have been marginalized in the media, but also even locally haven't had the kind of voice that others have had. And so I think our focus was on that. You know, we had school committee meetings. We were going to like 1 a.m, select board meetings, going till really late. Wow. So we had to sort of shift gears. We lost some of our in-person staff who were in-person only and weren't able to transition during that time. And we were fortunate in that we got some PPP funding that helped sustain us. And all at the same time, what was happening is that our funding was going down, as we talked about before. It was going down. And during COVID, cable subscribers were dropping off and just doing streaming or internet only. And so that trend continued, and we lost about 12.5% of our funds from cable, from Comcast last year. Wow. And about 7.5 funds from RCN percentage. So that's a big chunk of change, you know, that we lost. It really is. While having to deal with this pandemic, while having to meet brand new needs of the community that were super urgent.
Right.
So we did, I think our team did an amazing job pivoting. I'm so grateful for the staff, Corbin and Andrew and Ian. And then we had contractors as well helping us. And now we have a couple other staff that have joined us to help support some of those new activities. but that was really, that was a lot to go through for all of us. And, people are always saying like the metaphor is like we all had different sized lifeboats. And I think those of us in public access, boy, we were really kind of, essential workers, making sure that these channels were staying up day and night, and that in addition to the channels on cable, that we were also providing live streaming services to everyone out there. So that's really, I think that's like the elephant in the room, right? Is the pandemic. But then there was sort of the value proposition that was seen by the community because we shifted and pivoted quickly. I think folks in town, both the elected officials and folks who are civically engaged, saw us more as a arm of civic engagement of the community.
Okay.
So we were able to cover more meetings, more community discussions that weren't related necessarily to town government, but were, like the civic engagement committee in Brookline that was doing a lot of work to try to get more voices to the table. We were able to support that effort quite a bit. And so that actually, being able to rapidly respond to things actually gave us a lot more visibility than maybe we had in the past. And I think what I've heard is that's really happened all across the country for community media, which is a godsend, if you will, compared to, all the other challenges that we dealt with this last year.
Wow, that is heavy challenges. It seems like I was speaking to the executive director in Wellesley. It's actually the Wellesley Media Corporation. Mr. Joyce had basically said they're not going to no longer welcome membership.
Wow. They're
just doing away with it. That's actually the first public access facility I heard actually make that statement.
Wow.
And Wellesley is a very tight-knit community, very wealthy at that. And I'm thinking, wait a second, why would they just fold up like that? I don't understand. I'm actually going to be talking to them a little bit more, try to get a little bit more insight, if you will, but just to see what they're going through. Boston Neighborhood Network, however, they're trying to push the envelope to get people to do things more virtual. They really don't want people coming in. There's something about, I just had a conference call, about a month ago, and they was talking about, we want people coming and give us 3 days in advance or come in. I think the guests have to sit in a separate room because they're so paranoid about COVID.
Wow.
It's like, you have to have a guest come in and the other person has to. I said, why don't you just do a split screen like everybody else? Yep. So they're just like, I'm like, everybody's afraid of their own shadows these days. I understand the health code, but come on,
Yeah.
I mean, if everybody wears a mask, if they protect themselves or get fully vaccinated, they shouldn't have to worry about that.
Right.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's crazy. And as far as Cambridge, I think you guys, we're open. We just reopened.
Yep.
Cambridge just reopened. Actually, they opened before. I think they were the first public access facility to reopen because they opened like
Cambridge.
Yes, they opened, I think, late June, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. This year?
Yeah.
Yeah. They've had a lot of changes. They have a new executive director.
Yep.
I know there's been some other staffing changes. So I met their new executive director, and she seems awesome.
Right.
So I'm excited to see how we might work in partnership with them. Actually, one of the challenges, it's interesting you brought up like this move to government only and kind of not continuing the typical public services.
And then nonprofits, I was wondering if they can do that. Maybe somebody made a deal, or back when deals happen all the time.
Yeah, who knows?
It's like, but I've never heard of it, but just doing away with membership. I thought that was all part of the way there's 501c3 is structured.
Yeah,
you have to follow those guidelines.
Yeah, I'm not sure in their case. Like for us, though, for absolutely, our bylaws include members. We are having to charge for memberships, but it's $50 a year if you're a local resident.
Right.
If you're a Boston resident, it's $100 a year. That's really nothing to pay when you can come in and use all our facilities, all of the editing.
And Wellesley was charging $15 a year. They're probably the cheapest on the map.
Wow,
$15, and I'm like,
yeah. It might be. One of the issues too is just staff time. So for us, think about this. We increased our community coverage. So instead of just providing cable shows, we also added all of these live streaming events, which takes double the staff time. And then we covered 550 live community meetings just in 2020. And we're actually going to probably double that this year, at least meet that, and maybe increased it by another 30% this year. So when you think about how much staff time it takes to do both a cable show like this, but then also do it live streaming on Facebook, on YouTube, on everything, it's more staff time. So, you think about a smaller center, maybe like Wellesley, and they may just not have enough staff. They may not have had staff capacity or training even. I mean, we're seeing a lot of nonprofits go down, small businesses, nonprofits.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's, I don't know everybody's individual situations, but I think people have to figure out with the resources that they have in their community what they can do. I mean, luckily there's a lot of public access resources in the Boston greater area, Boston area.
Yes,
so
yes.
we're really fortunate. In California, we lost I think I told you this last time I was on, we lost 50 stations in 2010 alone, just completely shut their doors. And that was because of statewide legislation in California that, basically took away our operating
Unfortunately,
dollars.
they didn't have the resources to become self-sufficient. I mean,
and that's the trick, right?
everybody-
I mean, one thing I would say to people out there is, when you hear us asking for member fees after we haven't for 35 years, it's not arbitrary. It's because these cable fees are really in decline, and we're worried, frankly, about them going away entirely.
Oh, right.
So how are we gonna sustain what we've been doing for 35 years the same way when, health insurance costs for employees are going up, rent sometimes is going up for some organizations, our cable fees are in decline.
Right.
I think the future of community media is uncertain. I don't have a crystal ball. I've been saying that all this year with COVID, right? But, this is my 13th year in community media. It's my third community media center. I do a lot of strategic planning work with other media centers who asked for me to help them out. And we're all in the same boat.
Yes,
we're all trying to figure out, how do you go from having funding that is a quasi-government sort of organization that serves the public? How do you go from that and then suddenly have, when that funding goes away, how do you come up with other funding? You have to go ask people for money. You've got to.
Well, that was one of the
charge for
questions I was going to ask. I think we talked about it briefly last time.
Yep.
What about community events,
Yeah.
such parades? I mean, you guys have a mobile unit, right?
We don't actually have a mobile unit because parking is so bad in Brookline that we couldn't find parking for it. But we do have mobile tools that we use to go out and cover events. A year ago we covered Juneteenth during COVID. Out on Adina Walker, who's a Brookline resident, who's also has a new show on Big and is a board member with us now. We went and covered an event that she organized as a producer on her porch. So we did a live event, live capture of that, streamed out live on Facebook and YouTube, and on the cable channels. We did the protests, the murder of George Floyd protests last summer. We covered those live through one of our members' Facebook streams. So they just threw that Facebook stream up for a protest that was happening, and we covered that right onto the cable channels, right onto streaming. So we've had to adapt and figure out, okay, how do we use technology to make sure that we're quickly covering community events or allowing our members to cover those community events, because we can't do it without our members. We can't, we're not going to be a news station that can go out and cover community events. That's never been our goal. Our goal is to make sure people like you have the tools so you can come in here and make your own show.
Yeah, not everybody has that capability. Even the ones that become members, they, like all these 50 cable stations in California, just shut their doors. Not even thinking of a new way to.
Well, it happened pretty fast. I mean, basically, their entire operating budget got taken away by the cable companies. So, I mean, that's something that could happen here, too. We have 200 community media centers.
Where do you see Big in the next 5 years?
Oh, gosh.
Just the way things are now.
Last time I talked to you, I felt like I was a lot more certain, honestly. But the uncertainty of the world has been, it's been hard on me, too. I'm just thinking, I don't know. I mean, I think that cable fees aren't going to go away entirely, but they're going to go away so much that we might have to go to some of the models that we created in California. So at my station in Santa Cruz, California, where I was the executive director, Santa Cruz and Gilroy, Hollister, San Juan Bautista, we had no operating funds, lost all of those cable fees. And so basically we had to create a volunteer certification system that enabled our members to come in and use the studio without staff.
Oh, wow.
They had a little key card that they swiped, and they were able to come in and use that facility whenever they wanted to, which is kind of helpful to them. But they had to go through like a 3-month program and get certified, so that it was really an awesome way for members to help each other. And what would happen is, Adina would come help on your show, and you'd go help on Adina's show. And in some ways, I feel like that's a really sustainable way. It complicates things because, then you have people who aren't paid employees coming into the facility, and you've got to create a whole structure for that. But
yeah, because Boston don't even have a production crew anymore. It used to be you had to have 6 people.
Oh, wow.
Back in the day, you had to have 3 camera people. A person does audio and the graphics, but now it's only one, almost like here.
Yeah.
Just one person, the way they got it set up
with
now.
the robotic cameras. And well, I mean, you see that even in commercial media. I mean, if you look at like a news journalist, a lot of times for the smaller stations, it's one person, and like if it's me as a reporter, I'm the reporter, but I also set up my camera, I set up the tripod, I'm checking my audio myself.
Talk about self-sufficiency,
right. And that's, you see that happening more and more. You don't see that in Hollywood as much. There's still a lot of, for folks who are listening and thinking like, well, I want to be in the industry. There are very specific jobs that you have to really be on set for years and focus on those jobs to get better at it. But for a small nonprofit like us, we hire people who wear many hats, who are jack of all trades, and a few of them are masters of some of them, so that helps. But we have to become more agile, I think, as an industry. I think that's, long term, we have to think about, how do we create and find tools that are going to make our jobs more efficient, more easier to do, and continue to provide the level of service that we've provided to the community for years. It's getting trickier and trickier.
Yeah, it seems that way. I mean, what about other producers like myself? What advice would you give to someone who wanted to get in this business, just in general?
Yeah. Well, I would say, come in and make a show. I mean, we're helping you. We have funding right now. So come in and we'll help you get started. Our team is super talented and very committed to making sure that our members have a voice and learn skills to be able to start your own program or make it in the industry. I mean, we've got classes this fall. You can go check out on our website. I mean, we have classes on how to be interviewed or how to be a good interviewer, for example. We also have an accountability group of producers who want to help each other. So that's something that people can come
No one
regularly.
else is doing that.
Yeah. And that's a way of helping support each other's vision. And I think that's really something helpful for producers to know that somebody else is like going to be like, well, how you doing? Did you do that thing you said you were going to do last week? We all need that, right?
Oh, yeah,
of course. Or like, hey, I'll come work on your show if you come work on my show. That kind of thing. I think
where
is
it
a
used
good
to
way
be
to
one
help
hand
out.
wash the other, but unfortunately everything is so diverse. Not so much diverse, but everything is segregated. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like everybody works on their own show.
Yeah, everybody wants to do programs. And you got people coming from all over the country. Different parts, want to become producers or just be journalists. And I'm like, wow, you know what I mean? And they learn how to speak the language. There's some classes, I think CCTV is trying to set up something where they have a diverse group, where they have people who have learned language. So if they want to do a program about Hispanics, they want to use that language to teach a class.
They want to do a Spanish speaking.
Sometime in the near future, at least that was talked about.
We have some Spanish speakers on our team. In this community, there's a lot of diversity of language for sure, and there's a lot of different cultures in Brookline. So staff produces a lot of events to cover things that are happening in the community. We get requests and we go out and cover those events. We also have a diversity, equity, inclusion committee that just formed on our board of directors, and they're really looking at ways, to consider, hey, do we have enough content from this group in our community or this voice that's not being heard? What are the voices that aren't being heard in our community?
Right.
Are there, our production grants, for example? I don't know if you know about these. We have production grants that we've done for, I think, 3 years now. We skipped the last 2 because of COVID, but we now have production grants that you can apply for, and you can get up to we have $5,000 total, so about $1,750 per person. We're going to give out 3 grants this fall. And that deadline is, I think I think we still have a couple more weeks left on that deadline. So we're encouraging people to get their applications in. You can find out on our website, of course, on brooklineinteractive.org.
That's interesting. Okay.
We want to encourage. We have a whole Couch to Creativity program for producers and for our members this fall. A lot of media centers are saying, we're just trying to cover the government stuff still. And I've been trying to encourage us to think more creatively about what we can do virtually, because in some ways, for some people, it's easier for them to come virtually to a class than it is to come in person. So we're trying to accommodate that. We're trying to, make sure that we're open 3 days a week so people can come in as long as they've got their COVID, vaccination, and wear a mask, except when they're on camera. Then you can be without a mask. But we do, we want to make sure everybody's safe and also thinking about creativity again. And I really believe, my husband runs the Northampton Community Media, and I steal a lot of my best ideas from him, honestly. And I think he does some of me too. But he always says that one of their core values is play, and I love that because it's really important for us to create, especially when we have the kind of adversity that we've had this last year and a half. It's really important for adults to not let go of that kind of childlike creativity, and you can be productive. You can have a career in this field, but you can also play and create. And so we have this whole Couch to Creativity that's like Couch to 5K training. So the production grants are part of that. Our Crowdsource Boston, we're doing Jurassic Park. So people are turning in their scenes in the next couple of weeks for that. So we'll have remade the entire film, Jurassic Park, and we'll be screening it online, and everybody can come and watch it virtually with us. And then we also have
the open house
grants.
we had a couple of years back.
Yes, we did that as well. And then we also have a film sprint this year, which we haven't done for 3 years, and so we're bringing that back, and we're doing it virtually. And so on October 14th, once you can sign up on our website, and then you come on virtually on October 14th, and we give you a line of dialogue. And you pick from a hat virtually. You pick a film genre. So it might be like film noir, or I think Seaworthy is one of our, or like activist documentary. One of the other ones I really love was like History Channel or lifestyles. And then you have to make a film, a 5 to 8 minute film in that genre.
Interesting.
And you have to include that line of dialogue. So we're trying new things because COVID, in a way, was like the big disruptor of community media, right? And for the world and for our lives. And so let's try new things. Let's figure out what works. Let's figure out what people want to do. And if you have an idea, or if you have something you want to do here at Big, we're really open to hearing any ideas from the community about what do you want to create, what kinds of classes would be helpful to you. And in the meantime, we're going to continue to fight these battles with the cable companies. And so I don't know if you wanted me to say a few words about that. I can jump right into that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, let me just tell you what I was trying to do. I was actually trying to start my own network. Sort of like BET, because I know how they started. I had an opportunity to actually meet the former CEO
no
of
kidding.
BET. I flew to DC. This was a long time ago. And they basically, BET, how they started was very interesting. They had 3 shows: Def Comedy Jam, Video Soul, Donnie Simpson, Sherry Carter, and Teen Summit. That program was about troubled teens in the DC area. So what they did was they had a channel, but they had an hour show. Then they started creating other shows. In order for them to launch it, to get sponsors and so on, they had at least 3 hours on a channel. And what they did is combine it and said, we're going to call it BET, Black Entertainment Television, cater to the black audience. That's how they did it. So it's sort of like, they call it real estate. I think till this day they still call it real estate, because you have like a small room, and then you get a $2,000 a month apartment, and then you get a roommate to share expenses. That's how commercials work. They pay for the airtime. So you put together this brochure. But basically what I'm saying is you take steps to build, to get space, because the more space you have, the more tenants you can have. That's what I'm actually trying to do. Bean TV is actually a network. 2 shows. This one and another show called Entertainment Profile. It's only 2 shows. But that's my goal, is to have my own network. But I'm sure there's other people that think that way, but the only problem is terminology, because it's not broadcast anymore. You can't say network. So what is the only thing I have is, well, what is the the political correct term to use? If you want to start your own business, media group, yeah, there you go. But you can't say network anymore. Like I'll say, I'm trying to start my own. What? What's that? I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing with me. Terminology.
Yeah.
I'm actually taking more classes.
Yep.
Myself.
Good
for
you.
like Premiere and stuff like that.
Yep.
But I'm like, I want to learn this. I love what I do.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah, that's obvious.
And there's so many people want to get involved, but there's other people who have the same type of ideas. I want to be able to use the platform to educate people on that. Yep. That's why I created this whole concept.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, definitely send them to us because, we love hearing people's ideas and vision and then helping them to kind of frame it and contain it and think about the next steps and, give them classes that are helpful to them, grants that are helpful to them.
Yeah.
Or even just, like with Jurassic Park with the whole Crowdsource Boston thing, it's like some people come in and they're like, well, I want to make media, but I don't know what. So you say, okay, well, here's a 1 to 4 minute scene from a movie that you know and love and just recreate it. Just make it your own. Okay. And so people do all kinds of weird things. People do sock puppets. People do
I know. I've
it's
seen
so
that.
fun.
Like the fun show.
Yeah.
It comes on Mondays. Well, it used to come on Mondays, but I was like, wow, the guy plays the keyboards.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's different.
Yeah. Or we've got grandstanders. Adina, Walker just started a kids show that's like the new Mr. Rogers,
Tiffany Haddish had a program on Wednesdays, but they took it off the air. It was something called, what was the name of that? The kids say the darndest things. It came on Wednesday nights, but it was only for like not even a season.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
Tiffany Haddish was the host of that. I think she was also the producer. I'm not sure, but it was only on for like maybe 2 or 3 months.
Yep.
Then they cut it. I mean, I guess maybe they were still shooting episodes. I'm not sure, but it just seemed like it just ended so abruptly.
It's hard for people to be consistent sometimes. I mean,
and it was on at
things
night,
come up.
8 o'clock at night.
Oh,
so I'm
wow.
thinking, why that should have been on in the morning, I would think.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
But they just like abruptly.
Which station was that at?
That was on CBS.
Oh, and CBS. Oh, wow.
CBS don't play. If you got to live up to the expectations.
Wow. I mean, that's one of the reasons I think that.
They have a backlog. I understand. They got a 10-year backlog.
Wow.
Programs waiting to get on. I'm like,
well, here's the thing, though. You don't have to go to CBS. That's the thing is like people don't have to because, not only do we have the internet, but we have community. There's 1,500 of us around the country, community media centers. And, to your point of, so what can people do? I mean, come in and make media and let us help show you what we know, and then we'll learn from you too. And we'll, we want to hear your ideas, and we want to hear, what stories you have to tell that aren't being told on corporate media. And that's really, I think, why all of us who work here, that's why we came here. We wanted to make sure that, the voices that aren't being heard on corporate media or that they're on the 10-year waiting list for, that they have an opportunity here to be creative and to play and to learn.
That's what's so great
grow.
about public access television.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I'm trying to figure out who came up with that whole concept.
Well, a lot of people attribute George Stoney. Okay. We call him the godfather or the grandfather of community media because he was a professor in New York, and he and his students started recording like a particular. I'm really bad on the names of all these places, but they started recording this one intersection in New York that they believe needed a light. Or a traffic light, and because of that, they were able to go to the town or to the either the neighborhood association or the city council and say, this needs a light. And so
the town hall, city hall,
and that was a way that citizens were able to use media, and they really hadn't been before them because you couldn't afford it. And so like those porta packs were so heavy and expensive. Before the porta packs, rather, the porta packs actually made it more democratic because people could actually get one, be able to use it, and then use the video footage to like make a case for political things in their communities to be involved civically. So I think he was a documentary filmmaker, influenced like a lot
Ken
of
Burns
us.
WGBH.
Yeah, but he was pre Ken Burns. He would have been probably in over 100 now. So he was doing work actually in my mom's home state of West Virginia, talking about poverty, talking about issues that people in those communities wanted to talk about that they'd never been portrayed the way that they felt like they actually were. And so I think he really influenced a lot of us in the industry today to do this kind of work where the community has the voice. It's not me as a documentary filmmaker going in and telling the community, okay, this is the story that I think you should tell. It's going into the community from more of an ethnography view, which is like, hey, you tell me what's going on here. You know, what is the story you want to tell? And then in a lot of cases, training people to use the equipment themselves so that they could tell their own stories.
Right,
and I think that's really the lineage that community media is out of, which is we want to put media in the hands of people and let them tell their own stories.
Yeah.
I don't need to be coming in and telling people what the stories are that they should be telling or listening to or consuming.
Interesting. Very interesting. And that's why they call it community media.
That is.
I think it's a very good idea. And I think it's definitely something that should stay around.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're not trying to get rid of it. They just don't want to support it.
Well,
So
it's the
not a
cable
thing where
companies.
it's, okay, we just want to get rid of you.
Yep.
You know, but it is becoming a dinosaur and we have to support it, you know, but
In other ways. And I think we used to be a dinosaur. I think, well, we are actually doing dinosaur movies right now with Jurassic Park.
I know, right? Literally.
Literally, but we're not a dinosaur anymore. I think that's one of the problems with community media right now is that public access is seen in this kind of Wayne's World, kind of, in a basement doing bad TV. But I mean, this is not bad TV. This is great
not
TV.
bad TV.
You're
It's
producing great TV and good media and good media content. And it's going out not just on cable, but on streaming, on social media, and all these other platforms. So I think, we maybe haven't done the best job at showing like how relevant we are now and that we are modern and that we know what's up in the community and we know how to make media and help other people make media. And I think COVID actually helped us to be more relevant because people really saw how impactful it was.
Yeah, by
for
more
us to
people
be
sitting at
relevant.
home watching programming and they
Exactly.
get to see everything, all the channels.
Yep.
But then you got Apple TV, you got
Yep.
Roku, you got all
Disney
these different
Plus, Paramount.
Yeah, I'm like, what?
All of those, I
Peacock.
know.
I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on?
Yeah,
here?
yeah. There's so much,
I
and
think
they're
everybody's
all.
trying to jump on that bandwagon.
Do you think? I think it might
media.
consolidate back at some point and get bundled back in. I kind of hope that it'll get bundled back in cable because then we'll keep having our fees.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe just stay even. But right now they are going down quite a bit. And this FCC order, just to get back to that, the FCC tried to pass this order. They did pass this order that basically meant that nationally that and that's Federal Communications Commission.
Right.
So they basically were making it so that the cable companies could charge local municipalities and us as community media centers for these cable channels that have for 50 years been given for free to the community. That's the whole point why Congress passed the Telecommunications Act that made community media be funded by a per subscriber cable fee, right?
Okay, right.
So why would you just undercut the entire law from, the last 50 years? Well, because they don't want to pay to communities. They make millions of dollars in profits and they have decided they don't want to pay back to the community for all of the traffic hassles they cause when they dig up our streets. They're paying for the public right of way by giving that fee to community media and to local municipalities. They don't want to do it. So they're fighting us in these places where they can show up every day and try to influence members of Congress and the FCC. So what we've been
Sort
doing,
of like your parents kick you out the house when you turn 18. Get out. We don't want you. We don't need
I
you.
guess it's a little like that.
The parent, what they call a parent company. Oh God.
Well, and the thing,
concept, almost same concept. From what
yeah, it might be. I mean, really though, it's local communities have to take back that power. We have to say, we have to push back and we have to say, no, you're not going to take public access away. This is something our community values and you're making a lot of money
we need
because
more
of our
people in
community.
legislation.
Absolutely. We need folks in Congress. Senator Markey has been super helpful in making
I've
sure
noticed
that
that,
community media has been protected. He had the Community Television Protection Act that he and Representative Anna Eshoo out in California put forward.
Okay.
And then the I think it's the 6th District Court did actually, we put an appeal in to fight this order by the FCC so that we wouldn't have to pay for in-kind donations that the cable company gives, which is what the cable channels are considered.
Right.
And we did get a small, tiny sort of a stay, not like an actual win. It's a little bit of a win, which is they can't charge us what they would charge you if you went and said, hey, I want to put my QVC channel, I want to pay you for cable to have it on a cable channel. They couldn't charge us the commercial rate. So they can't do that, thankfully, because that would have been, it would have made us all shut down, honestly. So at least now,
and
what
you're not allowed to, you can't advertise because you're a 501c3.
Exactly.
Let
well,
me ask
also
you a
because
question,
of the
though.
cable
That's
channels.
another interesting. Is there anything, okay, once you're a 501c3, can you change that and go commercial if you wanted to?
Not under your 501c3. You can
No,
start.
what I mean, you can like say we don't want to be no longer 501c3. We want to start doing real television, so to speak.
Not under the bylaws that we currently have. I mean, and not with the cable channels that we currently are using. However, I mean, this is an interesting point you're bringing up, because if they are going to charge us for the cable channels, there is a question legally of whether, if they're charging us for the cable channels and they're not just giving them to us, could we make one of the channels commercial? I mean,
yeah, because BNN had 3 channels.
Maybe we
I think
could.
They still do.
Right.
You guys have, we have what?
We have two, but we actually have a third one that we could use per the cable contract with the town. So that is something that I've thought a little bit about. You know, if they start charging us
Depending
cable
on your coverage
fees.
and households involved, penetration.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have like 17,000 people that have cable in Brookline, which is of 58,000, I think, in Brookline. That's actually pretty good cable penetration, you know? So you can reach a lot of people with that. Now, will they give you the information about who's watching when? No, because they claim that's proprietary. But we could do some of our own kind of tracking to see, you know, whether or not people are listening in or watching the
there's
channels.
ways you can track.
Sure.
Because you got Google Analytics, you got every channel, even Amazon has a tracking where you can say, okay, how many people actually watch, you know.
But the cable channels are a little bit outside of that.
Back in the day.
Right.
They were like the biggest. I think they still are, but
it's so questionable too. Like, though, I mean, of the people they're reaching, you know, are those people that are more inclined to respond to surveys anyway? So is it a certain kind of person, or is it? I don't know. How much is that really real? I don't know if it's made up or not. But I mean, I think what I would like to see is, we would maybe have to challenge that legal question in court and say, hey, if you're going to charge us for these cable channels, shouldn't we be able to do whatever we want with them?
You're right. You're absolutely right.
And there's a model maybe for us to be able to use one of the channels as commercial, and then the other two, one for public, one for educational, and one for government.
Right.
You know, we are also having to charge for things we never have had to charge for before. You know, even in this upcoming contract negotiation with the town, we're having to look at, you know, before COVID, we only covered a third of the meetings we're covering now. So we're going to have to charge you for more of these meetings. So we're building in things like that. We're, you know, we have a fundraising goal of $10,000 this year, which is really small, really. But because we're an organization that's never really done much fundraising before, we're, you know, just starting small and building from there. So we encourage people to give donations, obviously, as well, if you're able. But if not, become a member and come in and make media. I mean, that's also a way to support public access.
Right.
The stronger our programs are, our youth programs, our adult programs, our classes, the stronger we're going to be, because you are us.
Right.
You are community media.
Right. That makes sense. But it looks like we're out of time.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Half the time goes by so fast.
It goes by very fast.
But for those of you who are watching, you're watching Community Insight, and we're here live on Big. And our special guest is Miss Kathy Bisbee, the Executive Director of Big. For those of you tuning in, please log on to our website for more information. That's thebeantv.com. That's thebeantv.com. My name is Andre Evans. Thank you for watching this edition of Community Insight. We'll see you again next week.